You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
A Catholic deacon is one who is ordained to the diaconia, that is, a service of God's people, in communion with the bishop and his body of priests. The principal function of the deacon is to collaborate with the bishop and the priest in the exercise of a ministry which is not of their own wisdom, but of the Word of God, calling all to conversion and holiness. A new class of 19 permanent and 4 transitional deacons were ordained at Holy Name Cathedral on Saturday, May 13th. Today we will meet a couple of new deacons here at Diocese of Chicago. First up, we have Deacon John and Rose Porter. So you're welcome to Catholic Community of Faith on WNDZ, 750 AM, 312-255-8408. You can also get us on youtube.com, Catholic Chicago, here on Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowitz, the rector of the Cathedral in Chicago, and co-host Mark Teresi, and what you've been viewing, for those that are watching live stream, was the diaconate celebration ordination on Saturday, May 13th. Again, there were 19 new permanent deacons, 4 transitional deacons to be ordained priests a year from now. And with us again is John and Rose Porter. Congratulations on your diaconal ordination, John, a week ago Saturday. Good morning to John and to Rose. How are you both?
Fine, thanks.
Doing fine. Doing fine.
Are you still on a cloud?
Well, I did all the masses this weekend, so I'd say I'm on the cloud, but I'm also
A little tired.
breathing a deep sigh of relief.
Did you preach at all the masses, John?
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling very joyful, but Monday morning came very fast this time, a little quicker than normal.
Rose, how has John changed since May 13th?
You know, it's funny. I actually have noticed. I have to go back to May 12th at the rehearsal and the week leading up. I noticed all the guys, not just John, but at the rehearsal at Holy Name. You know, there was a little bit of kind of camaraderie with them and chuckling and stuff. But they all kind of seemed serious. Like I could tell that you could just feel the heaviness at the rehearsal, because they knew that this really was something so monumental change in their life, even if it's not showing, what's going on in their soul, and then it'll show up, to other people, some subtly and some not so subtle ways. So yeah, he was like that on Friday. But what I noticed after, Cardinal Supich laid the hands on him, and after the ceremony, I really, there was definitely joy there, and it wasn't like it maybe as his wife, I don't know. I just saw it right away. He was relaxed. He was at peace and joyful, and it seems like that is. That was over a week ago now, but it's there. I could see it and I can feel it.
Beautiful.
That's fascinating. It's maybe just as a way to back up. First of all, you belong to what parish?
St. Peter Damian in Bartlett, Illinois. So if you're not familiar with the area, we're just sort of south of Barrington.
I know exactly where you are. I used to be in Schaumburg at
Due
Church
west.
of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, so we're a little bit
West of
just a little
there.
bit west of Schaumburg.
In fact,
and
you are
as a
the
matter of
farthest
fact,
west parish.
Yes,
Now, is Father Chris your pastor?
yes, Father Chris
He
Chomek.
was one of our students when I was dean of students at
Yeah.
the college, and Father Greg was head
Oh my
of.
gosh!
Yeah, what a small
In
world.
fact, I was the vocation
And 25
director.
years of ministry for him, right?
Sure.
Yeah, this is 25th year anniversary.
Oh
In fact,
my-
he came to see me at Niles College Seminary of Loyola back in the 80s to enter the seminary. I remember he was so nervous to see me, he thought I was going to toss him out. And 'cause I was the vocation director, and I thought, here's a wonderful, outstanding young man who then entered the college seminary, went on to Mundelein, and Father Chris is celebrating 25 years of priesthood. And now, no deacon is ordained in a vacuum. So maybe for a moment, John, tell us your story, which led to the diaconate decision, because you just didn't walk up to Father Chris and say, "Hey, I want to be a deacon," and then Rose said, "Oh, what a great idea," and boom, you're at the altar. What is the story that led up to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the interesting things is when you said you don't just walk up to Father Chris and say, I want to be a deacon. Of all the guys in my cohort, there were 8 of us. Um, Only one of them actually approached their priest. Santos Gutierrez approached his priest wanting to be a deacon. Most of us, like myself, we were tapped to become a deacon at some point. So in my case, yeah, I was really busy with my career for many, many years. And over time, my wife said, my wife, by the way, she's a late Carmelite. So she's been a Carmelite for 23 years. And she and her sisters, I guess, were praying for me, saying, you should get involved in something. You'll be happier. You'll find peace. So I started with lector ministry. And then shortly thereafter, Father Walter Tukuski,
Oh, yeah.
who was the pastor at St. Peter Damian, he asked if I would join the PPC, his Parish Pastoral Council, which I did. And then that led to me being his spokesperson to teach who Christ is. So, as you can see, I was gradually getting more and more drawn into the parish life and meeting with and talking to people. And then they tapped me to see if I'd like to be in wake ministry. And, at first I was a little hesitant because, wake ministry, I maybe wasn't that comfortable in that situation. But then I said, well, what is it that you believe? Do you believe that we're body and soul, that people are alive after death, that there isn't an afterlife? And if that's what you believe, then this shouldn't be a problem. So I joined that ministry, and I started to write my own reflections. And one of the deacons watching me tapped me again and said, are you still thinking about the diaconate? And I said, well, right now I'm really busy at work.
You work like 60 hours a
yeah,
week.
putting a lot of hours in my position. But as fate would have it, I got to retire early through my employer. So I took that, and then at the same time, I explored the diaconate, signed up, and 4 years later, here I am.
Yeah.
That is.
So it's a gradual.
Yeah, and Deacon Bob Hall, I just have to add one quick thing to that. He said that most vocations are exactly like that. It's just like God reveals just a little bit. Can you just get involved with this? Okay, and I want you to just listen. Because if people knew ahead of time, they just might be
Run for the hills.
frightened and intimidated.
Oh, yeah. In fact, out of curiosity, John, what was your career for all those years?
I was a tax accountant, and I ended up, was it British Petroleum, Amoco, and then I was vice president of tax operations and reporting at Baxter. So I was very busy at different periods during the year with reporting issues.
Was that your cat that just went through the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, Tommy Marie.
He wanted to be on YouTube.
I thought something went through the screen there. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah.
Now, Rose, what about the accompaniment in this whole process? Because that's a great commitment for the wife of a deacon candidate. Could you explain that to folks?
Yes, it is, but it's definitely manifests itself in different ways. There are some wives that, for example, the Archdiocese is wonderful. You could take classes along with your husband. You could be present there. They'd let you audit all the classes, be a part of that. But Deacon Bob stressed that is one way to accompany your husband. Another way is just to intercede and pray for him, be like a real prayer warrior. That in my case, I prayed that he had the graces that he needed to continue this journey, if this is what God actually wants of him. Because it could have been where he started this program, because what do we had, like 14 to begin with and ended with 7 or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it ends up in a 4-year journey. It doesn't, people don't always stay, but it just means that they're called, to some other form of ministry. I can't believe
I'm sorry, your
other
cat's
form of ministry. And so what it means for me as a wife, I've already had a presence at the parish, but now I have even more of a presence because, like they said to us, you're representing the Archdiocese of Chicago. Just always, how do they put it? Like, just don't get involved in any sort of political
Mm-hmm.
or you're here to represent everybody and to just try to be a model because they did say this, they are watching you.
Oh,
John is
sure.
the one that's ordained, but they are watching you. So so don't, that doesn't mean I have to be perfect, but just be always aware that you're representing God and the archdiocese, and so that's how my role has changed.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
question, Rose, that your involvement is very critical because if you're not supportive of John entering the program and all that is asked of John and you, Rose, in the program over 4 years, if there's a wife who's not interested or willing to be supportive, it doesn't fly. Now, question for you, John, and that is, when Father Chris asked you to be enter the diaconate program, what was your greatest fear in entering?
Well, I guess that's another good question.
That's
I
why.
think
That's
for
why I get
me,
the big bucks.
yeah, I think for me it was so I'd been an accountant, the work I did, it's very specific, it's concrete in some ways. There are judgments involved and whatnot, so there's a softer side of it, but a lot of it is concrete, profit and loss, balance sheet, reserve. So I was worried that given all my training through graduate school, would I, when I'm going back to school now, many years later, and now we're getting into a little bit of philosophy, theology, how am I gonna adjust to that? Am I gonna be able to think that way and pick it up, learn it, and really like internalize it so that I'll be then able to, in a homily, speak confidently uh, to the parishioners, or if they ask me a question, be able to, either answer it. Now you can't know everything, so sometimes you say, "Let me get back to you," but I mean, you would hope that once in a while I could answer a question.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest concern.
It's interesting, John, you say that because in my 4 years in the theology at Mundelein, ordained a priest in '79, the greatest fear I had in the seminary was being ordained and sent to a parish and not having answers for people. So I studied my brains out morning, noon, and night in the theology at Mundelein for the 4 years. I was just afraid. You go into a parish, someone asks you a question on morality, on scripture, on sacraments. When I came to realize I was at the Church of the Holy Spirit in Schaumburg, that's why I know the Bartlett area so well. I was with Father George Kane, who's still living, 97 years old. And I came to realize after a year or two, it's summarized this way: people don't care how much you know, but they want to know how much you care. Now you have to study, you have to know the foundational materials, no question, all these areas of theology. You study your brains out. But again, at the end of the day, people ask you, did you love us? Were you there when we
Right.
needed you?
Now, this is my wife's question to you because you share a sacrament together. How did you meet?
Oh, I could, yeah, this is a fun one. We met in 1982. We went to the same high school. We were high school sweethearts. I was a
Oh,
junior and he was a senior, and we met the year before in a lit class. And I thought, oh gosh, this guy's so smart, but he seems kind of like a know-it-all, kind of person. But he was 17,
Uh-huh.
and he thought, oh, she's just an airhead. She must like, she's good at whatever. I got an A in the class, but boy, we were a little bubblehead, always laughing, always giggling. And then what? 4 months later, we're dating,
Yeah,
and we never stopped. 6 years later, we were married.
yeah.
wow.
So we've known each.
What
We've had
high
a
school, by
relationship
the
for
way, Rose?
40 years.
What high school?
Pardon me?
What high school?
Fenton High School in Bensonville.
Oh, in Bensonville.
Yeah,
That's
Fenton. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I grew up in Wooddale, and I went to Holy Ghost Parish.
Sure.
So, John,
But she grew up in Bentonville.
did you go to two proms?
Just one.
Just one.
Just one?
Because yeah, he had
'Cause
finals.
I was a year older, so
Oh,
Yeah.
and then I went off to college.
That
Yeah. And
is
I
a
remember he had
great
finals that
story.
week, and
Yeah.
I Understood.
The greatest story I ever had, I've been a priest now, mentioned 44 years. I always ask a couple, how'd you meet? How'd you meet? And the greatest one I had was about 30 years ago. He was at a stop sign in his car, and ready to go on. He gets rear-ended, a very gentle rear-ending in the car, just a little fender bender. He gets out of the car to check the fender. She's in the car sobbing. He goes up to the window. She rolls the window down. He says, "Would you like to have lunch?" He fell in love with her immediately, and 3 years later they
Oh
got
my
married
gosh.
because she rear-ended him at a stop sign. No damage to the car. Nobody was hurt, but I thought to myself, if she doesn't hit him in the back, he moves on from the stop sign, and she moves on another direction, and they never meet. So someone can say, "Oh, what a coincidence how you met." And a coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. It's a wonderful definition. But even your story, it's interesting. Your first impression was this guy is so smart, but kind of know-it-all, and and calling Rose a airhead, and that or Rose calling herself that. That's great.
Yeah. Now, I
Yeah.
had a question for people that are listening. As you talk about we talk about the diaconate. I think sometimes people are confused. Well, the diaconate, you're ordained, the priest is ordained. What's your relationship with your priest in the parish?
I'd say it's really good. I mean, Father Chris, I'm lucky. Okay, so where I'm at St. Peter Damian, because Father Chris is very, very generous with his time, and he's a very gentle man and a very just a good, nice individual. For example, he was very supportive as I was going through the program. He kept, as I was getting nearer, saying, we're going to be fellow clergy. He always included me like as an
Wow,
equal.
that's beautiful.
That is great.
That's great, but I always tell him, look, I'm your right-hand man. So, you're the boss. He's like, oh, no, if I do something wrong, tell me. I go, no, no, no. You're in charge. I'm here to assist and help you in any way I can. And so
Very pastoral.
so he's been very welcoming. Deacon Marius, Deacon Sattler at our parish, the same thing. So I feel really good. They include me in their staff meetings every Tuesday. So I show up and I get to see what's going on in the parish, maybe where I can help out, or any suggestions I might have, or things I hear from them. So it's very collaborative. Everybody's trying to pull together. So I think I'm really excited to get it rolling now.
Beautiful.
Well, I want to
Just
thank in a
beautiful.
very, very special way Deacon John and Rose Porter. Welcome to the diaconate. And in all my years of priesthood, I've been so blessed with tremendous deacons in all my assignments. I really work closely, including at Holy Name Cathedral. We have Deacon Stan Strom, Deacon Dennis Roback, Deacon Dan Welter, and Deacon Mike McCluskey. And so blessed. And so welcome to the diaconate to the both of you. Our prayers are with you. When you see Father Chris, tell him that we say hello, because when he entered the seminary, Mark was on the faculty. I was the vocation director. He'll remember us well. So our prayers are with you in the faith community, St. Peter, Damian, and Bartlett. So to Rose and to John Porter, congratulations and God bless. You are listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM 312-255-8408. You can also get us on YouTube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz and Mark Teresi, stay with us. We'll be back after a few messages. And again, do not touch that dial.
Caring adults make all the difference in the lives of adolescents. Catholic Charities understands this, and our mentorship programs provide a free opportunity for young adults to spend time with volunteers who genuinely care about them. This program is ideal for youth aged 9 through 12 who may need support navigating the challenges of childhood and early adolescence. Our amazing volunteers serve as friends who help youth recognize their strengths and empower them to reach their full potential. Catholic Charities conducts a thorough background check on every volunteer, and our program coordinator closely monitors and supports every relationship. Mentoring is a fun after-school program that can help young adults build confidence and enjoy fun activities with their peers, too. To learn more, visit CatholicCharities.net or call 312-655-7970 in Cook County and 847-782-4224 in Lake County. We're connecting youth with great role models. Join us today.
People always say, how can you spend your day with 3-year-olds? Seeing the changes that they go through and just the journey and how they grow, this is a very rewarding job. Even though at the end of the day, we're not the highest paid people on earth. And when I have a parent contact me and say, my child loves school, that to me, I'm setting that foundation for their love of learning. Because really, you are changing lives. You are molding lives.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
Catholic Charities' Family Self-Sufficiency Program has assisted thousands of single parents who are working to become more self-sufficient through education and employment opportunities. Our experienced case managers accompany participants for up to 5 years on their journey to identify, address, and break down barriers to improving their quality of life and achieving meaningful goals for themselves and for their families. Professional, compassionate assistance is offered in a safe and trusting environment as participants develop the skills needed to become financially stable and able to support themselves. Every achievement starts with a decision to try. To learn more about Catholic Charities' Family Self-Sufficiency Program, call 847-782-4233 or visit CatholicCharities.net.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-840. You can also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sackwitz and Mark Treese, and you are watching here, those watching YouTube, the diaconate ordination celebration on Saturday, May 13th at Holy Name Cathedral in Chicago. 19 new permanent deacons in the Archdiocese and 4 transitional deacons ordained. Permanent means they are permanent deacons in the Archdiocese. The 4 transitional deacons that will be ordained to the priesthood next May of 2024 at Holy Cathedral. And keeping the program going here, joining us for this next segment is Deacon Jose Morales, one of the 19 permanent deacons ordained at Holy Cathedral, again on Saturday, May 13th. Jose, welcome to the program, and congratulations to being ordained a permanent deacon a week ago. So God bless you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Father. That means a lot to me. I've seen your program on TV on Sundays, and I even have your Catholic joke book.
Oh,
no.
You do? God bless you, Jose. There's something about you I really like. Oh, that is...
They couldn't give those away.
The interview couldn't have started better, right?
That is very funny. Now, what parish are you a deacon at now, Jose?
I'm a deacon at Our Lady of Unity Parish. It's a newly formed parish as a result of Renew My Church. The 3 churches, well, originally 4 churches, but the 3 main churches that currently exist that are part of that new parish are St. Helen, which is the parish church, and the other 2 are St. Aloysius Gonzaga.
Oh, sure.
And Holy Rosary, and they're all located on the near northwest side of Chicago.
Okay, and the thing is that now again, as we talked to Deacon John Porter and his wife Rose, what was your story that led up to the diaconate? First of all, you were born where?
I was born here in Chicago, and as a little boy, I was one of 10 kids, and both of my parents were born and raised in Puerto Rico. Well, when I was a kid here in Chicago, my mom was really like a very important source of inspiration for me personally, because she's such a beautiful human being and a very devout Catholic all her life. So having 10 kids and three of us were boys, so she would always say, "Oh, I pray to God that at least one of my sons will become a priest."
Mm-hmm.
And I was the smallest of the three, so I would answer, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll be a father." So she had a lot of high hopes for me. Uh, Unfortunately, I moved away from that plan, uh, but God works in mysterious ways, and He found a way to bring me back to Him. So uh, she didn't have her son, the priest, but she has her son, the deacon.
Now, is your mother still living?
She is, thank God.
How old is your mom?
She's 86.
God bless her.
Now, what was
Yes.
it like after ordination to give her a blessing?
Well, that's an interesting question. I have yet to actually give her a blessing.
She called us
she
and
was-
said that. She called on and said, "Make sure you get over there."
Well, I speak to her on a daily basis, so later this afternoon I'll be giving her a call, and I'll make sure to give her a blessing over the phone.
Oh.
That is terrific. And now the other thing is, Jose, is as we talked with John and with Rose, is what was your story leading up to the diaconate? Who was your pastor, by the way?
My pastor is Reverend Claudio Diaz Jr.
Oh God, what a
Yes,
Father Claudio!
yes.
I just saw him at the
Yes,
ordination on
yes.
Saturday. Wonderful,
Yes.
great priest, the archdiocese. Now, was it a case of, I can't remember who John said, are you the one who approached your pastor about the diaconate, or did Claudio approach you?
No. Actually, I was approached by our pastor as well as one of our deacons by the name of Raymond Arroyo. They both, on separate occasions, approached me and just asked if I had ever given any consideration to a possible vocation to the diaconate, and then they proceeded to to indicate that they felt that I would be a great candidate. So I took it to prayer, and the following month, I believe, there was an orientation at our church for the diaconate program, and maybe a couple weeks after that, I submitted my application and was interviewed by Deacon Bapahala, and everything went from there.
Jose, how was the journey? How is is it 4 years of preparation?
Yes, 4 years of preparation. The first year was aspirancy, and then 3 years of candidacy. And we were one of the cohorts that was impacted by the COVID pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to somehow make it through that because there was a lot of ingenuity, a lot of creativity. And so we had a lot of our sessions, virtually, like as we're doing currently. And so we were able to still receive formation during that time. And those 3 years of candidacy were very, very instrumental. I mean, we were given exposure to a wealth of the wisdom of the church, and we were formed in the human, spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral dimensions of formation. Very in-depth studies, and a lot of opportunities to serve and to practice. We had retreats, a lot of theology, and so it was a blessing. 4 years, and not to mention we had great instructors who really showed their command of the knowledge of the material and the desire for us to learn.
You did have a,
It
you
was
have a
all
great,
around a great experience.
you do have a great teaching faculty. A question is, when you began the program 4 years ago, Jose, how many started in your class?
I believe we began with about 13 or 14, somewhere around there.
But now you ordained 19, so how could that be?
No.
No, well, in our English track of the program, there were only 8 of us.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
The majority, I was in the English program.
Okay.
You know, Father Claudio would have preferred that I did the Spanish program, pero no pudo ser.
Now that's very, very interesting. Again, a question I asked John was, as you were going through the program to the diaconate ordination last week, what was your greatest fear during those 4 years as you were preparing for May 13th?
Well, throughout the entire 4 years, I didn't have a particular concern. If anything, I was elated and you know, I felt great that I was able to you know, go through the program. I persevered. I had a lot of support from my family and from my parish, as well as from the program itself. The Institute has always done a great job. They're very professional. And so I felt, if anything, my financial situation has been the most difficult aspect, the biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But I've somehow, some way been able to manage despite that.
Now, are you working
And
right
I
now
think
too?
that's God's work.
Are you working a full-time job right now?
Well, I'm working at the church,
Okay.
but on a part-time basis.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
That's interesting. When I hear St. Aloysius, first of all, I didn't realize it's 50 years ago. We taught religious ed at St. Aloysius, but
Wow, that's amazing.
and we taught in the homes. And another St. Aloysius memory is Archbishop John Vlasny was pastor there. He loved his pastorate there. He's coming in for our 50th from high school in June, and when I talked to him last week, he mentioned St. Aloysius again. And
Did he really?
And what a love he had. He had 4 or 5 busloads of people came to his ordination when he was first ordained a bishop in Winona.
No kidding.
So he loved the area. But my question is related to St. Helen, Aloysius, Holy Rosary. What's the demographic there, and what is your ministry? What do you think it's going to look like?
Well, we've been fortunate that we've had a very multicultural, multi-ethnic presence in our parish, in our community. When I was younger and we, as a family, would attend St. Aloysius, it was predominantly Puerto Rican. That's sort of my background. Even though I'm born here in Chicago, I'm of a Puerto Rican background, and so back then it was predominantly Puerto Rican. There still is a good representation of Puerto Ricans in the community, but it is very, very mixed right now. We have Mexicans, we have Polish, we have Italian, we have Vietnamese, we have Filipino. There's a growing Anglo presence because the community that we're located in, the immediate residential area, has been gentrified. So a lot of the families that used to live there no longer reside in that area. And we have a lot of younger white American families. And we're starting to see some of them come to our Sunday masses.
Good.
So it's great.
Quick question, Jose. Where'd you go to high school?
Oh, I went to high school in Puerto Rico.
Oh, in Puerto Rico.
Yes, I lived there for 11 years.
But you were born in Chicago.
I graduated from, ready for this? Dr. Efraín Sánchez Hidalgo High School.
Wow.
A lot of names.
That's a lot. That's a lot of names.
Can I ask what did your brothers think of you being ordained?
I must admit, I initially thought that they would not be entirely supportive, but they proved me wrong. All throughout my 4 years of formation, they were right there with me, supporting me in many ways, praying for me, supporting me financially when needed. They were always motivating me. They always felt that I had a vocation to the diaconate, and that it was just practical, common sense that I would pursue it because they saw it in me.
Beautiful.
But there's no question, Jose, that when early in the program, you spoke so glowingly about your mother, a very devout Catholic, very supportive,
Yes.
wanted a priest in the family with one of her sons, and you ended up being a deacon for the Archdiocese of Chicago. So there's no question. And just like my mother, very devout Catholic, my mother, God bless, she died 3 years ago at the age of 97. Mom would have been 100 now. So has your mom by
She lived a
a
beautiful
couple of
life.
years. Yeah, exactly. I was very, very lucky and blessed. And so I'm sure your mother played a key role in growing up in the foundation of your Catholicism. Say more about Mom and about your faith relation to Mom.
Sure. We grew up in a neighborhood here in Chicago, which is actually a couple blocks away from St. Aloysius. Back then in the 70s, it was gang-ridden and drug-infested. It was like a little Vietnam. I mean, there were shootings just about on a daily basis, and a lot of drug consumption, and it was a terrible environment to be up in. However, within our household, despite the difficulties of our surroundings, we would pray the rosary in the evenings as a family, believe it or not. It was just something that was instilled in us all throughout our young lives. Our parents were always reminding us of the fact that we were a Catholic family. And I remember walking to St. Aloysius every Saturday to make my confession. Even if I didn't feel that I had sins to confess, I was there every Saturday. And I served 3 years as an altar boy at St. Aloysius when I was young.
That's a great story.
So my mom and my dad, may he rest in peace, he passed away in 2015. He was also instrumental. He was a hardworking man with only a third grade education, yet he was able to make a lot of things happen for our good. He really, really sacrificed for us and showed us the value of sacrifice. So I owe a debt of gratitude to them both.
Jose, do you have a spiritual hero?
Well, it seems obvious, right? My name's Jose, so I made the 33-day consecration to St. Joseph last year.
Beautiful.
That is true. Now, as moving forward as a new deacon in the Archdiocese, what will be your ministries and the parish?
I have yet to sit with my pastor to work out the ministry covenant, but I've already identified 2 areas that I would like to focus on, to the extent that he is in agreement, because he ultimately would say what is needed and where he sees me serving. The first area that I'm interested in is with biblical literacy. Throughout, at one point in our formation program, when we were doing the Service to the Word internship, I put together information about a possible, like, a program that I could lead in the church on the Bible, on sacred scripture, understanding the Bible. And it was based on a podcast, and the podcast had like 30 episodes. And I listened to the entire podcast, and I formulated this program based on that information. The idea being that I would, provide an opportunity for the parishioners to better understand the Bible, its origins, its meanings, its significance, how we as Catholics are called to read the Bible and understand it and pray it. That's one area that I would like to pursue.
And the other area before we close?
What's that?
And the other area before we close?
The other area is I just received a packet on Lord teach me to pray, on Ignatian prayer. So I would like to pursue that if possible.
Beautiful.
I want to thank in a very, very special way newly ordained deacon for the Archdiocese of Chicago, Deacon Jose Morales. God bless you, Jose, and also God bless you for having bought my joke book some years ago And
God help you.
God help you. You are listening to Catholic Chicago and WNDZ.
It's been helpful.
Oh,
in
good.
some of the
Use
religious
it. Use it
education
for some of your
classes.
homilies. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
WNDZ 750 AM 312-255-8408. You can also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowitz and Mark Teresi. What's so funny there, Mark? Stay with us. We'll be back after these messages. And again, do not touch that dial.
Community is core to Catholic Charities' founding mission. For more than 100 years, we have met people and families where they are, serving anyone in need, regardless of their faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. As our world absorbs the economic, political, and social aftershocks of the pandemic, 50% or more of the 6 million people living in Cook and Lake counties have little or no savings. They are a paycheck away from zero. We are deeply grateful to everyone in the Catholic Charities community who partners with us to alleviate the suffering of the people we serve and offer them a better path forward. We are witnessing a message of mercy and hope to a world very much in need. Learn more at CatholicCharities.net.
I am a seminarian.
The Church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
For more than 20 years, Catholic Charities Adult Protective Services has been advocating for seniors who are the victims of abuse, neglect, confinement, or financial exploitation. With our partners at local, city, and state agencies, our trained case managers follow through on every concern that is brought to our attention in a cooperative way to ensure that our seniors are safe and protected. According to the Illinois Department on Aging, last year nearly 21,000 cases of elder abuse were reported in Illinois. Of these, only 5% were reported by seniors themselves. So raising awareness is an important part of this issue. If you are concerned about a senior you know, call 800-252-8966. That's 800-252-8966. With your help, we can stop elder abuse and look out for the seniors in our lives.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM 312-255-8408. You can also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Again, Father Greg Sakowitz. Mark Teresi. It's been a wonderful program so far on the newly ordained deacons a week ago Saturday. And for the last segment, we have today invited Deacon Richard Hudzik, the Director of Ongoing Formation in the Office of the Diaconate, the Archdiocese of Chicago. Richard, good morning. Welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you for the invitation. And I'm here to maintain the high standards that have already been set so far this morning. So
it's been, I'll tell you, having
he hasn't listened to the show.
Deacon John Porter and his wife Rose,
they were
and having
wonderful.
Jose Morales, tremendous first 40 minutes of the program. Now, Richard, you are the former head of the diaconate program, but now you are the director of the ongoing formation in the Office of the Diaconate.
Correct. At the tender young age of 70, I thought it would be good to transition to another role before they dragged me out kicking and screaming. It was a good opportunity, and we had a good candidate to surface to take over the reins. That's Deacon Jim Norman. I think you've talked with him on this show.
Oh, sure. Wonderful man.
So it was a great time, and I get to do something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's work with particularly the new deacons, as well as the community at large, the diaconate community at large, in terms of ongoing formation. So it's a job I love doing.
Now, Richard,
been doing it for about a year.
You were ordained a permanent deacon in what year?
In 1998.
So 25 years.
Right.
And then you were actually head of the diaconate program from what year starting?
For about 10 years from, let's see here, I was at Stritch from 2005 to 2012, then 2012 to last summer, 2022. So 7 years at Stritch and 10 years at the diaconate office.
Sure.
So 25 years ago, the diaconate was present in the church, but not as much as it is now. What was your journey like in terms of being called to the diaconate, Richard?
My own journey was I was practicing law. I've always been interested in academics. I had a great relationship with my pastor at the time, Father Tom McNeff,
in
the south suburbs. And it just, I had started a master's program and sort of whet my appetite for a more disciplined inquiry into the faith. And one thing led to another, that I didn't want to maintain simply the head knowledge, but also wanted to implement that. And it began with teaching at the parish in adult catechesis, and then as I walked into the faith, I saw how large it is. I think there's a Chesterton line that the church from the outside in looks small, but from the inside out is huge. Mm-hmm. And that was a part of my discovery, is just to walk the journey of faith and to see how much is there. And the education led to service, and the service led to diaconate formation.
Yeah, two quick questions, Richard, and that is, number one is, you've been ordained a deacon now 25 years. What changes have you seen over the 25 years? And secondly, as the director of the ongoing formation, for our listeners, what does that mean? So question one, question two.
In terms of changes I've seen over the year, the numbers of deacons have gone from over 600 to somewhere in the low 500s right now, and that's attributable to the fact that the earliest years of the diaconate in Chicago were these huge ordination classes. The class of 72, I think, was 113 guys who were ordained.
Wow.
In four different sites on the same day. There was also an increasing acceptance of the deacon in the parish. We move so slowly in the church at times, it seems, but I would say that there's a much greater acceptance of the deacons in the parish. I think there's a much better relationship between deacons and priests. I would also say that, and I thank Cardinal George for this, back in when he came in what was it, late 97, within a not terribly long time, he moved the diaconate formation and other ministry formation programs up to Mundelein. And that was a good move. I would say that from the year 2005 on, the education for deacons has dramatically improved. It's much more rigorous than I was able to slide. I don't want to say slide through, but it's a much more professional and intense program today. So I think we can be grateful for that improvement in the capacities of the deacons. So I see that. So I think it's on the up. I'm very happy to be a deacon. And in terms of the director of ongoing formation, not to go too far into the weeds, but the point is to have the deacons, all of us, every Christian really, deacons in particular, they've called to this vocation, but to continue their formation in all dimensions of the vocation. so that there's a particular emphasis on formation. It's now a 5-year program post-ordination where we focus on the human development, the intellectual development, the spiritual development, and the ministerial development, the 4 pillars, so-called, of formation. I say it's something of interest to every person, not merely the deacon or the priest, but every Christian really can utilize that fourfold framework to assess how they are in their walk with the Lord. Are they spiritually, intellectually, ministerially, or vocationally? How are they progressing? And so we construct programs for those first 5 years to walk with the guys, to cover things more deeply that they maybe touched on during formation, as well as to introduce new areas of education for them that they didn't cover at all during formation.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd be curious. Maybe our listeners would be too. So you're practiced law,
yeah.
As you were being called to the diaconate. How did that fit into your diaconate? The study of practice of law.
Well, actually, they're complementary in the sense of life skills, reading, writing, and arithmetic, so to speak. But as I was practicing law and beginning to understand the call of the deacon, who is to be the icon of Christ the servant, the deacon is best defined not by what he does. That's not a good way to proceed, but rather to identify the deacon by virtue of who he is. And who he is to be an icon of Christ the servant. So in my practice of law, while I was being formed and was a deacon for a number of years and practicing law at the same time, I became aware of the need to serve my clients, that my job was to give myself of them to the extent I could. We can be tempted, I suppose, in any profession to view the client as a cash register, and that's not to be a servant. The servant who is the lawyer who is a servant is going to put himself on the line. He's going to expend psychological energy. He's going to care, and he's going to, as I say, give himself. And so I found them complementary, to treat clients as humans, as people who were coming to me for help, and that's what I endeavored to do. So I would say the diaconate schooled me in that spirituality of servanthood.
Switching gears a little bit, Richard, the very fact that we're ordained now 25 years a deacon, you've done a marvelous job in the Archdiocese, a real leader, and having headed up the program, maybe some advice, if there's anybody who is listening, any man out there at least 35 years old or approaching 35, who is thinking about the diaconate. I know a lot of times they'll say, oh, it's not for me, get this crazy thought out of my head, I can never do it, I'm not worthy, et cetera, et cetera. What's some advice you can share to our listeners right now for any man who is considering the permanent diaconate in the Archdiocese of Chicago?
I would say be open to that nudging of the Spirit. The standard response, I'm not worthy. Well, you're right. You're not worthy. None of us is. But I would encourage the person to listen to that prompting. Not expect to have a fully developed notion or understanding of what the diaconate is from the get-go. That's what formation is about. Formation is a marvelous opportunity to grow close to the Lord. You grow closer to your wife as well if you should be blessed to be married and you're in the program. It does marvelous thing for marriages. It does a marvelous thing for your fatherhood. It does a marvelous thing for just your ability to get along in the world. So I would say don't expect more of yourself at the beginning than is reasonable. Enter into the formation, open your eyes about it. If you have a heart for the Lord and you want to deepen that, be pliable and vulnerable to being led more deeply. So I'd say, hear the call, consider it, and see where it leads you.
It's interesting, before Mark pops in the question, your very title, the Director of Formation in the program, you're not the Director of Information, you're the Director of Formation. And there's a huge difference, because you can have the knowledge, which is in the head, but that whole formational aspect of the being heart-driven from the Lord. We need the information, know the theology, but the key component is the formation, which is ongoing, and let the Spirit of the Lord lead us and surprise us.
Absolutely. That's why we speak of the four pillars. It's not merely the intellectual, but it's also the human. Do I know how to get along with people? Or am I a prima donna, or what have you? Am I lacking in all confidence? It's also the spiritual. We are who we are by virtue of our relationship with Christ. And then, I guess the fourth pillar is, well, do I know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Do I know how to run a meeting? Do I know how to stand around on the altar? Do I know how to teach catechism, RCIA? So that's all four of those components are essential.
Now, maybe, Richard, when you were speaking about your ordination, you mentioned Father Tom McNeff, who I had worked with at St. Francis de Sales. Do you want to say a little bit, as you began your diaconate, what was your relationship with Tom? He was a unique individual,
Right. It's so unique that in his casket, may he rest in peace, were, I think, Mickey Mouse ears, because he was a diehard Disney fan. If you ever wondered where Father Tom was, it was Czech Orlando. Father Tom was very expansive and generous in his cooperation. It was you think back though and shudder. Think how generous he was in walking with me, who the brand new deacon who really didn't know many times what he was doing, but yet like a good shepherd, he was able to encourage me to continue. His response was not to correct, but rather to lead and encourage. So I was very blessed with that.
Yeah.
I want to thank you very, very much to our guest this last segment, Deacon Richard Hudzik, the Director of Ongoing Formation, the Office of the Diacon in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Before we conclude, Richard, can you give a phone number or website for someone who would like to learn more about the program?
I would go to the University of St. Mary the Lake website. That's www.usml.edu, and the Institute for Diaconal Studies and the Instituto de Liderazgo Pastoral, the Spanish language program, are both accessible through that website.
Well, thank you, Richard. You've been a blessing to the Archdiocese. You're a good friend, and how quickly the years have gone by.
Yes.
I can't believe 25 years. So thank you, Richard, for joining us this morning. Thank you to co-host Mark Teresi. Nice shirt, nice tie.
Thank you very much.
Very impressive. Great work of our producer engineers, to Clinton Cottrell and Michael May. God bless you, gentlemen, for great work again. To our listeners, have a wonderful week. Enjoy this beautiful weather here in Chicago.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.